Border and immigration issues, some of the most divisive debates of the past decade here. So we want to bring in some of the people who we feel know it best. In our First Project Community Special, we brought together different viewpoints for an open discussion on immigration. We're happy to welcome both sides back again today. Thank you for being here. They are Couy Griffin, Otero County Commissioner. You may also know him. He is founder of Cowboys for Trump. And Maria Martinez Sanchez, an attorney with ACLU of New Mexico. Again, really appreciate the two of you being with us for this debate.
Thanks
here.
for having us, Tom.
Everyone always says, right, the immigration system is broken right now. Can't handle all of the people coming in. Takes too long for good people to become U.S. citizens. Couy, what's top of mind for you when we're talking about immigration policy right now?
You know, I think that speaking on behalf of myself as well as hundreds of thousands just like me, if not millions, we're not against immigration. I just want to make that point very clear and very upfront. We know that we're a nation of immigrants. We know that immigration keeps us healthy, and there's a great need for immigrants, the contribution of immigrants in our country. So we welcome immigrants, but as we're a nation of immigrants, we're also a nation of laws. And those laws are set in place, are safeguards for our protection and to give structure to our country. So those laws need to be followed as we welcome immigrants into our country.
You know, I always hear, oh, just get in the line and come on over. If, you know, there's laws and you can get in. It's extremely difficult to get into this country. And if we're gonna
to become a U.S. citizen.
Well, yeah, exactly. To become a U.S. citizen, to naturalize, or even just to become a resident here. I mean, the years people have to wait in line, it's not tenable. If you are hungry, if you're living in poverty, if you're, you know, threatened with torture and violence, you don't have the luxury of waiting for decades to be able to try to get in this country. So what we need to do is make those laws more flexible. We need to be able to allow people in at a quicker rate, vet them, and make sure that they, you know, they'll be good members of society, but make it easier for people to come. Because telling people to get to the end of the line, it's just not, it's not something that is as easy as just getting in line and coming in.
Right.
And I would agree with Maria completely. We do need our immigration processes streamlined. We do need to make it easier for immigrants to enter into our country. But the migrants that are coming into our country, or in our policy, we need to have different levels that they come in. You know, if somebody wants to come in and work and provide a safer environment for them and their family, then they should be allowed to.
President Trump, he proposed this merit-based system to get in. It seems to favor highly educated, highly skilled people to be accepted as U.S. citizens, or at least get the visa.
I think it's great. I mean, we want to allow people that are coming into our country that are going to give back to our country. We want people that come to our country that are going to bless our country. So in regards to people having an education, or at least having some kind of skills where they can get into our workforce more quickly and efficiently, I don't see anything wrong with that.
So I also come from a ranching and a farming family from northern New Mexico, and I would say that it does take a lot of skill to pick chili, to pick onions, to work at a dairy, you know, to work with livestock. So just because someone doesn't have a college degree, that should not mean that they're not entitled or allowed to come to this country. So I take issue with the president's notion that only certain immigrants are to be valued, or their work is, you know, unless it's backed up by some sort of education. That's just not the way we've historically done it in this country. That's why we are this beautiful nation of immigrants, because we have allowed people in who might not be the richest, might not be the most educated, but they have a lot to contribute.
A lot of New Mexico communities right now are spending public money to help asylum seekers, shelter, food as well. Where do you stand on public money being used to help asylum seekers?
Absolutely against it. The taxpayer dollar is paid by hardworking Americans or New Mexicans to go into a tax base to provide infrastructure for the community. And whenever you have politicians going in, as our governor has been, and earmarking large portions out of our general fund in regards to grants to fund migrants coming in, I don't think we can afford that. The city of Deming recently, out of an $11 million general fund, they allocated $1 million of that towards asylum seekers, as Deming has systematic problems itself. The elderly, the children. We live in a state right now that leads the nation in child hunger. You know, our crime is out of control. We were recently voted the least desirable state to live in the United States, and we're allocating tax dollars for asylum seekers. I don't agree with it one bit.
So I agree with it, not surprisingly. This is the richest country in the world. We have the resources, we have the means to take care of people who are vulnerable, who are facing violence, who have been victims of horrific violence in their countries of origin. We've historically been a country that has opened our arms to immigrants. And so, you know, complaining about a couple $100,000 going to house children, to provide medical services and food, I don't think it's fair. I think we're placing the blame on the wrong parties. And I do think that we as New Mexicans, as Americans, are completely capable of taking care of people that are U.S. citizens, but also people seeking refuge in our country.
What about the facts, though, of 1/3 of our Native Americans living under the poverty level? What about the fact that we lead the nation in child hunger? What about those people?
Yeah,
do you feel like they
absolutely.
should be taken care of and that money should go to them?
Absolutely. I think everyone should be
but
taken
there's
care of.
only so much money in the kitty, you know?
And the way we allocate resources, that can be, you know, we can work with that.
Yeah, we allocate
So-
them to the people of New Mexico that are in need.
Big topic also has been with spending money. Maybe more money should be sent to Central America right now to help these developing countries, these still developing countries. What's your ideas on that?
So I believe the president has decided we're not sending those monies anymore to Central American countries, which is only going to exacerbate the situation. I mean, if we are saying we don't want these people here, that's not my position, but I know that is many people's position, well then let's help them in their countries of origin. Let's provide them safety net, let's provide them security, protection, food, housing. I mean, so we can't just say, we're not going to help you over there, but we're not going to help you over here. These are human beings that have a right to live and to be safe.
And
to
money's
be
being
taken care of.
spent either here or there. So, Coy, what do you
And
think?
yeah, and I would agree with Maria. Yeah, I mean, if we're going to help help others, let's help them in their own countries, and let's help them with their infrastructure, with their industry. But we can't help anybody unless we are unless we're economically strong and our country is secure. So, as America becomes great, then we have the resources to help others. But if we get flooded and all of our resources are gone, then we're not even going to be able to help ourselves, much less anybody from any other country.
As simply as possible, what are the steps to fix this policy with with immigration?
I think, again, finding common ground and really talking about on a human level. So I would just say, you have a beautiful 4-year-old boy that I met
Thank
right
you.
before the show. I have a beautiful 4-year-old daughter, and if my daughter was hungry, if my daughter was facing violence, if my daughter was not safe, I would do anything in my power to make sure that she was okay.
Absolutely.
And so that's why people are coming by the tens and hundreds of thousands to our country to take care of their children. And so if we as human beings can just talk about the humanity, I think that's a first good step.
And I would agree. My first step would be a secure border. We secure our border, we get the right immigration processes in place, we make sure our nation is secure. As Maria mentioned with her child, my little boy, I'm scared to death of the America that my son may grow up in if our country morphs into something that it's not right now, and it very well could. We have got to get a secure border in place. And for our governor and legislators to say there's no crisis on the border, and then as an Otero County Commissioner, when we declare a state of crisis and she says that that's a willfully ignorant position to take, and we're politicizing the border, the only willfully ignorant position to take is to say there's not a crisis on the border, to deny the Border Patrol's cries out, and then if you want us to talk about politicizing that, it's to continue down those lines of saying there's no crisis on the border. Our governor needs to come along, our administration in D.C., and focus on securing our border, because if we don't, we're a nation at risk.
Circles back to the border protection.
Absolutely.
Great to have both of you here. Always very good perspective from
Thank
the
you,
two of
Todd.
you. Thank you.
Appreciate you.
We want to keep this going to 2 more roundtables coming up. We'd like you both to come back for
Absolutely.
that as well. Now back to Doug and Shelley in Southern New Mexico.